Freud discovered a truth about women, concealed a truth so unvarnished and so risky enough that he kept it in a letter that I hope no one will ever see. But we're opening that letter today, and you'll discover what's inside. Recognize the reasons why the majority of guys spend their in habits change, and how you can at last release a reality that Freud forbade. An unspoken reality wasn't merely another physician. He was among the first individuals to genuinely go deeply into. He studied the human mind for years. Reasons for our feelings and the decisions we make, our decisions, and how our innermost, our lives are shaped by our desires. Yet, in the end of his life, Freud had to confront the reality that even he found it difficult to believe it was a truth about women, which made something so strong that he paused, did not have the courage to publish it in his last days. The letter that Freud wrote was concealed and never intended for public view to read it. He disclosed a fact regarding women that the majority of people still reject. Must acknowledge that Freud understood that a woman's, her grin isn't her biggest weapon. Her body language or even her words are strong, certainly, but they're just on her true power is hidden beneath the surface. And her ability to mold a man's spirit, her ability to alter his perception himself without being aware of it. Her one glance may make a man feel, her approval might make you a hero or a fool. Make him feel powerful while she keeps quiet, can cause him to doubt all. He's never used this power, which isn't usually noisy. Though not always evident, it is always concealed beneath the surface, and that's why it's so risky. Freud observed that women can make He observed that men live for their approbation. Many men do their hardest throughout their lives to make a woman happy by attempting to be the she desires for them to be a man, and with that, they lose sight of who they are, which is why this truth was deemed harmful by Freud. Because when a man allows a woman to mold, he is no longer his own soul, turns becoming a representation of her desires rather than a man who is independent. The majority of males were not prepared, as Freud understood. He understood that hearing this would lead to rage, bewilderment, or even dread. That's why the letter was never published, but we're revealing that secret today into the light, as each and every man deserves to be aware of the power contained in the danger that hides behind a woman's smile below it. The ability to mold a man's the strength of women mind. Freud was aware of the power of women over a man is frequently overlooked. There's always something visible it's not a major dispute or obvious sequence rather than a slow, soft murmur that permeates a man's gradually. It begins with the minor, the way she gives you a smile, when you concur with her, when she gives praise, when you do what she enjoys, it feels good. It's nice to see that small smile of acceptance. You feel as though you're on the correct course. But Freud cautioned that this is precisely where the risk starts, because it's not always necessary for women to yell or provide commands to manipulate you. But she doesn't need to speak louder or threaten. Her strength is more subdued than that, and that's the reason it's so powerful. Requires you to desire her approval, greater than your regard for oneself. She just needs you to want her. Feel like a hero every time she smiles. Good job, or with such expression it fills your breast with pride. However, this is the grim reality. The instant you cease live for her approval, you start to think about life for yourself. What will she think of this? Rather, if this is accurate about who I am, you turn into a mirror of her desires rather than a man who is independent, and that's when you give up without shouting loudly, but with a tacit understanding in your own. Be careful when hand off the keys to your self-assurance, strength, and identity that Freud observed at this time of giving up a man's thoughts no longer. It is his. It is hers, and that, according to him, is the most hazardous location. A man could be her trap at any time. The pitfall of her acceptance, the pattern of approval that Freud saw in men's life repeatedly, it was similar to a sickness that went unnoticed but spread through their thoughts without even being aware of it. It begins with a man and a woman meeting. She smiles at him after catching his attention. When he experiences a surge of enthusiasm that he feels seen and wanted when he smiles. Crucial, and he desires more of it. Therefore, he begins to act in ways that bring her joy. Perhaps it starts with little things, altering his speech to conceal portions of who he truly is, in an attempt to win her over each time she laughs or grins at his jokes. But it seems like a small win. Without realizing it, he begins to alteration. He starts to modify his acts and choices he makes, not because they are authentically him, but because he wishes to maintain her approval. Numerous males experience this, according to Freud. Her grin became their life's purpose. He observed that she was praised for her presence. They would disregard their own convictions simply because to keep her from being disappointed. They would act as though you're someone else in order to maintain her focus. But here's the nasty: Freud wants all men to see the truth. The smile of a lady is not always a gift. Smiling is a test that evaluates your strength, puts your sense of self to the test, determines your ability to stand alone, worth, or if you're willing to exchange them for her. Freud cautioned about approval when a guy gets dependent on her nod and grin. He gives away the most of his approval. Most importantly, he possesses his own strength. He isn't making choices anymore, for he is no longer living alone. Rather of using code, he's waiting for her to inform him of his identity and value. He has changed from being his own man to her strings are being played by a puppet, existing under the shadow of her acceptance. According to Freud, this was the final trap, because the instant a man's her smile determines her self-worth. He is now a slave to her favor, and is no longer free. And that's the biggest risk a man can face. Never confront the delusion of love's illusion. The secret letter from Love Freud contained a warning that all men should hear. Her smile is not a sign of affection. He mistook her kind words for protection, stated that a lot of males are in dire need of love and approval, are confused by affection. They believe this only because she states, "I adore you." It indicates that she agrees with them. Wholeheartedly think that she will love them for anything she desires. More. But Freud perceived something more profound and more hazardous than what women refer to as love isn't always about. Sometimes it has to do with devotion or care. Control that a woman may express her desire for a man who pays attention to everything she says, adapts to her demands, who transforms himself to satisfy her wants. She may claim that she desires sacrifice, generosity, and compromise, as well as a man who is willing to bend himself in as many ways as possible to become what she claims to desire. Yet Freud cautioned, There is a trap there because a woman may claim that she seeks a partner who pays attention. In her heart, she solely admires the man who stands alone. A woman can fall in love with you. However, if she feels that you have lost, you're no longer standing yourself by your personal principles that you uphold simply to maintain her happiness, then she will diminish their regard for you. And when a woman loses respect and affection, which is the brutal reality that Freud's letter revealed, the uneasy truth about a woman's love is insufficient to construct your life on. You require a man who stands tall to earn her respect. He doesn't bend, yet who knows who he is himself to get her acceptance, which is the man she really. Please don't misinterpret the illusion of true love. Don't let her kind remarks make you oblivious to the silent test. She is torturing you because in the end, even though she may love you, she will never appreciate you if you reveal your identity, only to retain her. We're in the secret, the unspoken conflict, the revelation in war. Freud's letter was that hits at the core of each man's battle, a reality so profound that most men are unaware that it's a conflict they're losing, which he dubbed the hidden war. Conflict without the use of firearms or words, but in silence and with feelings. Most men believe that it's a mental battle. The power of a woman lies in her words, phrases, her giggles, her grievances, but looking more closely, Freud discovered that the true, what she claims is dangerous, isn't. What she doesn't express is a part of her quietly. Picture yourself with a woman you concern about her being warm one day, lovingly grinning at your humor, highlighting your advantages. You feel like a one-day king. You'll feel like her hero. She abruptly draws back and stops praising you, but she gets chilly and leaves. It's quiet, yet you can feel it in your chest. Similar to a blade that cuts silence, it's the most lethal weapon she possessed. Freud realized that this quiet was a test. It's her way of asking, and most men fail. Are you going to crawl over to me and beg for my grin, or are you going to stand on your, be confident in your identity, no matter what? I do. Most men find stillness unbearable. The cold is too much for them, so they apologize for things and hurry to repair it. They did not alter who they were. To win her back, they must reduce themselves. Smile, and they instantly lose, since they've demonstrated to her that she can shatter them without putting a finger to it, that she is more silent than he is. Whole mind Freud was aware that the majority of males, they don't even perceive this battle. They believe all they're attempting to do is maintain harmony. However, in reality, they're giving up their soul. He thought that the only person who remains resolute in her refusal to whoever doesn't betray himself will creep. Only that man can really make her smile. Triumph, since in the covert conflict, the actual making her happy is not the goal of victory. It's the stoic approach to maintaining your own strength. The man who is stoic, according to Freud, the only one who might withstand the games and tests of a lady, the quiet, the fluctuating tides of the man who didn't require affection. He phoned him to get her approval to feel whole. The man who is stoic is not like the others. He's not cold like most men, or he's not a robot. Yet he is aware of that she is not the source of his strength, grin, her affirmation, or her endorsement. He stands tall because he is aware of his identity. He doesn't change who he is to suit her feelings. He doesn't compromise his morals to win her over. Glad he doesn't follow her smile as though he gets his illumination from the sun. Instead, if he so chooses, he loves her, but he refuses to let her love determine his value. He is able to embrace her, but he never forgets that before meeting him, he was a man. He will continue to be a guy if her love is a gift, not a demand. Her smile is a plus, not a necessity. Lifeline, which is what gives him his strength. Due to the fact that the lady who faces, he is aware that she cannot shatter him. She cannot force him to comply with her wishes. She may make him plead for her attention. She can test him by keeping quiet. Return her love, yet he's still steadfast as a mountain during a tempest, and she feels strong and at peace. Something she can never feel for the man who wants her praise. Honor Freud realized that many guys may be loved by women in their existence, but they only show regard for the man who stands cannot be broken, regardless of what she does by his own code. The stoic man is that, and that is the every lady can't help but admire this man. Notwithstanding her attempts to fight, it explains why this fact was kept hidden, suppressed Freud's final observation regarding women. The one that he never released didn't simply avoid the historical cracks by accident. It was concealed for a purpose, was too uncomfortable, too real, and too raw. It contained a reality that most people, women in particular, didn't want to witness information that might compel males to reveal their eyes to a game that has been played. In silence, this message disclosed for millennia that the real power of a woman lies not only in herself. Her compassion or smile is she shapes an unseen strength. Her strength is found in the man's head. When he does what she says, she grants her approval. Desires in the icy quiet she provides. This truth is revealed when he doesn't. Was buried. Since it removes we are all taught the concept of fairy tales, that love is always kind and pure. Fairy tales about always being safe tell us that a man will be uplifted by a woman's love. Hold him, but Freud recognized that her love can occasionally be a chain around. He noticed his neck. Something many women don't even recognize, that what they're doing isn't always planned, but occasionally instinctive, evaluating a man's strength to determine whether he is capable of standing alone, but whether it's on goal or not, the outcome is the same. The man who pursues her smile ends up becoming her. A man who bows down to her and a servant, she gets the keys to his psyche through quiet. Freud's letter did not hold women accountable, for he only revealed this power. Desired for men to understand that love is not always the secure environment. We envision love may be a battleground at times. Love can occasionally be a test of your character. True, but the world wasn't prepared to learn that the fairy tale was in demand. The straightforward tale they didn't want. The brutal reality of love can occasionally be utilized for control, which is why Freud's letter was concealed, since the world would prefer to accept a falsehood than confront a truth that could liberate. The decision that every guy has to make, Freud's final decision, which every man must make. The warning was straightforward, but had a big impact. Wait is a decision that every guy must make eventually in his life, regardless of whether he knew it or not. He stated, every man must choose whether to live for her. Acceptance, or are you going to live alone? Code, the majority of men are unaware of it. When they make this decision, it takes place slowly and frequently, without a single distinct chance to observe a man and lady meeting. and he initially wishes to win her approval. Wishes want her to be content, to laugh and smile. Being needed and wanted feels amazing. But gradually, without being aware of it, he begins to change. He begins to keep a close eye on what he says, because he avoids uttering statements that could irritate her, keeps his thoughts to himself. Even when he realizes he's correct, he modifies minor aspects, thought to himself, if I just do this, perhaps she will love me more. Freud often observed this pattern, and over a man who craves her acceptance turns into a performer and is constantly on stage, constantly attempting to get her praise. Every decision turns into a calculation of whether she will be pleased in this way. Gives up his convictions in order to keep her. He forms himself into what he is when he smiles. Believes she wants, but the difficult part is Freud wanted all men to see the truth when you give her the keys and live that way. To your spirit, you grant her the authority to determine your identity and value. You give up your strength, you wait with confidence in who you are, for her to smile and return it, and after you relinquish that authority, you are no. She smiles every time you see your own man. Makes you feel like a winner each and every time. She stops talking, and it seems like a penalty. You're not free anymore. You're a puppet under her control. But Freud additionally demonstrated that there is an alternative method for decide to live by your own rules, which means being confident in your identity. Even if she dislikes it, it indicates being honest with her, even when she gets disturbed. You must maintain your composure. When her quiet seems like a tempest, your heart aches when you live by, her smile is no longer the same as your own code. The air you breathe is merely a pleasant gift. Addition is not what holds you back. Alive, her love turns into a bonus rather than your motivation for living, and in that power, you grow into a guy she can't break. Turn into the man she genuinely admires, even if she doesn't always display it. Freud's A Man's Letter made it very evident that a soul cannot serve two masters. It's either hers or yours. That's every guy has to make a decision, and that the type of man you become is shaped by your choices. One who is in charge of himself, or one who awaits her, telling him who he should be. Last remarks. In conclusion, Freud's secret letter isn't. It's a mirror, simply a collection of words. A mirror reflecting the man you. Does it actually force all men to ask the most significant query in his life? Is it my life, or am I living as my own man? This inquiry is not for you as her servant. The dude isn't for the weak of heart. The man is the one who lives for approbation, who is brave enough to gaze into the mirror and see she might be the truth gazing back at him. She may refer to this as harsh or unfair. You're too cold and too hard, she would say. Overly obstinate. However, the reality is that reality does not conform to her emotions, because the truth is indifferent to whether it's comfortable, regardless of how simple it is. To listen to the truth as it is, and in actuality, this man is devoted to her. One day, smiling, will bow down for her. Acceptance of a man who molds himself to, he will eventually lose himself in trying to please her. The procedure, but the man who takes the initiative, who follows his own rules and declines to allow her to define his smile or quiet. Value that man turns into an indestructible. Man turns into a power beyond his capability.